Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Joanne Stevens, and this is our last call-in show of 2017. And I'm very enthusiastic about our guest today, Mr. Ken Corbin, who I will be introducing in just a couple of minutes. And he's going to talk to us about target marketing and selling more homes and being more profitable, something all of us are very interested in. Before I introduce Ken, however, I want to make a few announcements. This will be our last call of the show. We won't have a call next Thursday, the week between Christmas and New Year's. So, but our calls will start again in January. I want to remind people to put on their calendars for 2018 the MHI meeting that will be February 4th through 6th at the Ritz-Carlton in New Orleans. Also, the MHI Las Vegas Congress will be in April 26th through the 29th in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel. And it's not too soon to put on your calendar the National Communities Council meeting that will be in Chicago, November 7th, 8th, and 9th. So you can find out information and the dates and even register as the registration becomes available at my website, joannemstevens.com. All of our newsletters are archived on the website. There are also articles there about different topics. All of our listings are there. If you wish to receive the newsletter by mail or email, let me know and we'll be glad to send it to you. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Ken Corbin and interview him as our guest. Let me tell you a little bit about Ken. Ken joins us today with a long and successful career in the manufactured housing industry. Ken started his career in financing, working with the largest lender in the manufactured housing business at the time. During the day, he approved loans, and in the evening, sold homeowners credit life insurance to customers and dealers, insurance that the dealers failed to provide. As an entrepreneur, he was influential in putting together the largest private placement of its type on Wall Street. Ken brought together some of the premier retailers in the manufactured housing industry with that $30 million investment. He later became president of one of these companies. In fact, there are more homes sold at Ken's address than any other address anywhere in the United States. And that record still stands today. Ken has his MBA from the University of Michigan and is a former advisory consultant to the American Graduate School of International Management. He's also on the board of trustees of Habitat for Humanity. Today, Ken travels throughout North America and has spoken to over 2,000 organizations, including over 400 communities, retailers, manufacturers, and associations in the manufactured housing industry. He's the only three-time recipient of Professional Speaker of the Year in Specialty Housing and is a certified management consultant. Ken is the author of 8 books on sales growth, personal and business management. His newest audiobook, Selling the American Dream of Home Ownership, is 10 hours in length. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Ken Corbin. And Ken, you have just an amazing resume. You've got to be one of the highest qualified people in this business. And tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the manufactured housing business?
So, Joanne, of course, it started from the finance end years ago, back actually in the 1970s. And I was, as you mentioned, I was selling insurance, both homeowners and credit life insurance, in the evening to the customers that the dealers never bothered to do so. And became so intrigued with that. I was actually making more money in 2 hours at night from 5 to 7 than I was during the day as a loan officer, and got involved with manufactured housing. My first real big entry was with a group out of Fountain Valley, California, called Clayton, Williams, and Sherwood. That's no relation to Jim Clayton and the Clayton Group. But in the early to mid 1980s, they were the largest owners of manufactured housing communities in the United States. And their portfolios ranged from New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, over then jumping to Georgia, and then down into Florida. And as a single guy, it was absolutely perfect for me, because I was able to go from community to community, set down some temporary routes, put together a sales team, and as we filled each one of these communities, we would subsequently then move on to the next one. And it was absolutely a joy. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then got involved with the retail end, going back to the days of Clayton, not Clayton, but I beg your pardon, Oakwood Homes, and ran all of their retail divisions in Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. Then to Clayton, where I ran virtually most of the Southeast, from the Carolinas all the way down to Florida. But had so much fun doing that, I wanted to then venture out and do training and consulting. And now I spend probably the majority of my time working with community owners, many of which are new into our industry, because I don't have to tell you the way it's exploding today. And the outlook, of course, is very positive in the future. So I travel from around the United States, from community to community, helping owners put together the business plans, the sales and marketing programs, choosing inventory, determining what specific retail plans, social media, and advertising plans need to be implemented to increase sales. So when people ask me what I do, is I say I'm in the business of helping people sell homes and fill spaces. So that's what I do.
You know, Ken, listening to you say that, it reminds me of something a very successful community owner, developer told me several years ago. And he said he maintained that you have to have the right home for the right market. And as I look around the country, and obviously I don't know all of the people, community owners that have built parks, but of the ones that I do know that built parks or bought a park and expanded the park and bought new homes, they all, and they've been very successful, they did have a philosophy of what homes would sell. So, but tell us what you see when you're visiting sales centers or communities and talking at meetings to park community owners. Are we picking the right, having an inventory of the right homes for the right markets that the communities are in?
That's a great question. And I think in many instances we are, but far often what we do is we overbuy. So when I begin, Joanne, what I do is I say, okay, we need to determine what type of market we're in. Are we in an area that is relatively low income? Are we in a market that would cater specifically to, let's say, the blue collar worker? Or are we going after the retirement community? And in some instances, of course, there's somewhat of a mix. but you typically won't see the low income with the retirees. So you may see some of the blue collar with the low income. You may see mixed communities where there's empty nesters mixed in with some families. But then you have to determine not only what you are today as a community, but where you want to go. In other words, if you're a 3-star and you want to be a 5-star community, that's terrific. But what's the plan to take it there? And we certainly don't want to put higher end homes in say a 2-star community. So we want to be careful on product, and then you want to match the product to the buyer. So if I'm looking, let's say, at a blue collar community, and most of that is going to be family, some of the things that I'll look at is, okay, what are the demographics? And if I'm looking at a blue collar demographic, I'm typically looking at 2 working parents who were previously renters, that has generally household income, total household income, somewhere in the low to mid 30s, upwards of $50,000. These individuals, of course, are looking for financing. I really look at credit scores. That's absolutely essential. So from a credit score perspective, when I'm looking with a blue collar area, I'm typically looking at scores on the low end of, say, 575, and then the high end typically of 650. Many of these folks simply haven't had time to really mature their credit score. So 650 is pretty much on the high end. Mm-hmm. And then we look at down payments, and the economy's still rebounding. Things are obviously looking very up. Of course, the House and the Senate just passed the tax bill, and which should help everyone from an income standpoint. Sure. But typically, that blue collar family, they're looking at 5 to 10% down. Mm-hmm. So we have to take a look, and what I call the old DuPont method, work backwards. So we know what they can afford. We know we have limited down payment. So we have to match that house to that specific buyer. Where if you're looking, and again, from a model perspective, you're looking at typically a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. If you look across the board, and anywhere in the nation today, number one selling home is a 14 by 70. Without the hitch, it's a 66 box. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that's geared towards that low to moderate income family. And of course, we're looking at the higher end buyers. You're looking at a different animal altogether. Then you're looking at typically 2-bedroom, 2-bath. They're not wanting a lot of rooms, Joanne, but what they're wanting in a home is they're wanting good-sized rooms. So it's not uncommon that we're doing 16 by 70, 66 box homes, or even up all the way up to a 16 by 80 with nice features. When we look at features, regardless if it's the blue collar or the upper end empty nester buyer, a lot of people, and we've all been guilty of this. We go to show, as an example, the Louisville show, which is coming up this next month, and then of course Tunica, and we see these beautiful homes with all these goodies, and you and I fall in love with them, and we say, "Oh, this is a great house. This is what we need to display for our customers." In most instances, what we do is we overbuy.
Yes. So we buy what we like.
Exactly. We buy what we like, not thinking what the customer likes. So you have to work backwards. That's one of the keys that I focus to clients. Think backwards. Say, okay, what am I going to sell this home for? To fit my customer's budget, to fit my customer's down payment, and make sure that we don't overbuy. Buy the custom features, and I hate the word options. We're not selling cars. I use the word custom features. Sure. Put the custom features in the home that are going to be most appealing to the buyer. And Joanne, you know as well as I do, the primary buyer is going to be a woman, if they're married, of course, or even a single woman. And I'm going to focus on their key rooms. I'm going to focus on the kitchen. I'm going to do some nice lighting, because lighting is so important.
Yes.
I'm going to focus on the bathroom. I'm also going to focus on the utility room, and then convenience custom features. Little things like a USB port, maybe next to the bed on a nightstand or next to a nightstand. But little things that the customer or the prospective homeowner is going to remember. And then going all the way down to that low end buyer, then I'm doing what and the terminology is BS&S. It's basic shade and shelter. Give them a good basic home. Don't overload it at all. And in this instance, you're focusing more on price, where the upper end buyer, you're focusing more on features. So that's a few of the little things that I look at.
Yeah, very common. I mean, that makes perfect sense. But I believe you're right that people get to the show and they everything sort of merges. You have a kind of a merging of, you're not breaking out who the buyers are and who you're buying for. So I wanted to, I mean, this could be an all-day call with you, Ken. So I wanted to ask you about the staging, because I think most community owners on the call, or most community owners in the U.S., are really selling to this buyer with the credit score of 575 to 650, with a meager down payment, who needs a low-cost shelter. And so, knowing that you're buying probably pretty plain home with not a lot of features, how do you stage that? Can you give us any tips?
Sure. And the best tip I can give you is, as you go to the home shows, be it the national shows like Louisville, Tunica, maybe some of the regional shows, or even going down to the manufacturing plants when your listeners are invited down. When you go into these homes, I can virtually guarantee you that none of them are going to be what I call naked. Yes. They are all going to be dressed up extremely nice. And a manufacturer, and I was somewhat surprised, but not totally. I was speaking to some last year at one of just a regional home show for a manufacturer. And on a entry-level single-wide, this was a 1470 I was mentioning earlier, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. This manufacturer had spent $7,000 to display a single-section home, entry-level, not for the end consumer or buyer, but for the retailer. Sure. And I asked, I said, I know why you're doing this to impress the dealer. And the decorator told me, she said, Ken, even more importantly, we're trying to impress upon the dealer that you can make an economical home, entry-level, basic home, look extremely nice. And by doing this, most of the customers, they don't have the imagination, especially that blue-collar, entry-level, first-time home buyer. You know, USA Today and Forbes, and I just finished the study, talked about what they call the boom the next 10 years. And it was a remarkable thing, and it's going to be part of the new programs that I'm doing in 2018. They sectioned off age groups, and the older millennials, that group of age in the next 10 years, some late 20s to their late 30s, that 10-year group, Joanne, is going to make up over 30% of all the new home buyers across the United States.
Well, that's 30% a huge,
is going to be in that 10-year
number.
plan. It's huge, huge. The second largest number, which I was really surprised, is going to be the tail end of the baby boomers. Those folks in their low to mid 60s to the low to mid 70s. Those people are going to be downsizing. They're wanting to get out of the big home. that had the number of bedrooms when they were raising the kids. They perhaps want to have a home up in Iowa and maybe down one in Florida or Arizona. And they want to have a great lifestyle.
Yes.
So what you're selling with the entry-level buyer is obviously price, the pizzazz, that first awe factor when they're walking into the home. Whereas the senior or empty nester, you're selling the awe factor, but you're really focusing then on features, and you're selling a lifestyle. So from a staging perspective, regardless if it's that first time, even the low income buyer, they have to look perfect.
Yes.
I did a program with Carnival Cruise Lines this past March. I was invited to speak to a number of insurance agents. And when I was on the cruise, I met with the chief of engineering. And I asked him, what's his biggest task on the cruise? He said, light bulbs. And I said, light bulbs? He said, Ken, if one light bulb is out, you notice it more than if they're all in. So we have people that go around the cruise ship all day making sure that the light bulbs are all lit. And I said, that's so true. And the same goes with homes. Light them incredibly well. Make them look ham and egg ready, like your customer could walk in, sit down, flick on a TV, and enjoy a cup of coffee or an iced tea. Make sure they're landscaped well, and outstanding signage. Oh my gosh, I see the signs that are done by many of these communities, and what they try to do is they try to turn a sign or a business card into a flyer, and make it simple. Use directional signs just to get them there. Use your main sign just to let them know they've arrived. Don't try to become a flyer, even with business cards. So just some of the small things that we can talk about to make that home absolutely perfect.
And so Ken, for a community owner that is buying new homes to sell, and to the first time home buyer, the one that's buying just the lowest cost new home they can buy, do you recommend, is it going to take $7,000 to stage the home to make that wow factor?
That's a great question. No, not necessarily. What you definitely want to focus on is you want to focus on the living room. Okay. You want to focus on the kitchen and the nook.
Yep.
And then the master bedroom. And here's a little secret that you will be surprised many of your listeners will be able to do. If you have, let's say, 3 models, you can stage one absolutely to the hilt.
Okay.
I mean, make it perfect. But instead of going out and necessarily buying all of this, go down to your local furniture store or maybe even a Big Lots furniture. And I've used Big Lots, and I've went in and I've met with the store manager and worked out a deal where they would supply me furniture for the models. And of course, what I would do is put a very nice sign in the homes, letting the customers know that this furniture was supplied by ABC Decor or Big Lots Furniture or Sears or whoever will participate in the program. All you have to do is ask, and you'll be surprised how many of them will not only supply you with the furniture, but most of us, especially us guys, we don't have a good knack for furnishing and decoring a home.
You don't?
One of the keys, as an example, is hanging pictures. And I've gone into countless homes and have seen pictures so way high up
Yeah.
because they always think it needs to be way high up. And of course, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be at eye level. But many of these companies will not only supply you with the furniture, but they'll do the decor, plus come in and make it look good. Because think about it, what you've now become is a showroom for that furniture company.
Sure. That's a great idea, and many of the retailers and community owners are very involved in their communities. They're well known and have excellent reputations, so they could very well find a furniture company that would be happy to furnish a model home. That's a great idea, Ken.
Oh, it works so well, and your listeners will be surprised that it's a way for them to open up. Like I said, it's just like opening up a satellite operation.
Yeah, it is. And so before we move on, was there anything more you wanted to add about staging or creating that wow factor? Because we want to make sure we talk about becoming more profitable. So any other thoughts on?
Well, of course, the landscaping, if I didn't mention that earlier,
of course,
that's got to be done. The underpinning or the skirting, depending on what part of the country you're from. Decks, both front and rear. And here's a little secret that I found that's very, very helpful. Most people find when they have a model home in a community that's staged, they bring the customer to the home maybe once or twice a day, maybe even once a day. And then what they'll do is have to open up the door and run around the home turning on all the lights.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It doesn't have to be done. What you can do is you can set up a little breaker. Typically, I believe it's a 60 amp break type toggle switch that you put on the front deck of the model. And when you're coming up to the home, you can walk over, flick on that switch, and it only controls the interior lights. So now when you're walking into the home, it's perfect. The fan is going, the lights are on. Of course, you're not wasting all that expensive and precious energy throughout the day if you're not showing the home at all. And then as you leave, and you can still leave the air conditioning or the heat on, because that can be on a separate breaker. But you can then walk in and have it look picture perfect, like it's ready for them to move in. And if you do that properly, you're going to find, I have a wonderful client in Belmont, North Carolina, Tammy Thomas. And Tammy has staged her models so well. She's got 2 homes that are staged and 1 that's not. I've been there for her open house events, and it's so common a customer walks in and says, not only do I love it, I want it exactly this way, just the way it's staged, because I can see myself living in the home.
Yeah, well, those are the magic words that you want to, that's exactly how you want that customer to feel. I could see myself living in this home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much.
What a great success story.
Oh yes. I have a client out in Pennsylvania. She's been around. They've been around since 1970. And typically open house events, I recommend doing those in the spring. But we didn't start this year until June, so we planned an open house for her. And we did it actually in late September. And in a 2.5-day span, we were very fortunate. We did some great social media marketing, and we took, I believe it's 16 deposits, all on new homes in 2.5 days.
Oh my gosh.
Remarkable success story for them. They just did a great job. Great job.
Well, that's very inspiring that you took that many deposits, because I think there is, as you say, a lot happening in the market and lots of new homes going into communities and many of them being sold. And some community owners have the mindset that there's no good consumer financing. People aren't buying homes. They don't have the down payment, the credit, and on and on. And you're telling us that they do. And
it's every market I go to. Virtually, not every, but virtually every market I go to, with the exception of that empty nester, let's say the Florida or parts of Arizona. Joanne, I hear the same thing. Well, in our area, people don't make a lot of money. They can't afford much. But they're not marketing after the right people. Yes. They're not using the proper social media campaigns. Of course, Facebook, everybody knows about Facebook. MH Village, the gold absolutely fantastic source. YouTube, you don't have to spend a lot of money going and doing expensive video. You can take a number of pictures, have them stitched together, and have your own YouTube station, and at no cost.
Yeah.
You know, Craigslist is fine, although Craigslist is geared more towards pre-owned and that first time and low income buyer, but it's still a wonderful source. You know, you have to know your market, know your buyer, spend your money wisely to attract the customers, but it does you no good to do this if you're not going to follow up with them.
Sure.
And people always ask me, they say, well, how long should I follow up? And I say, it's really simple. Till they buy or they die, whatever comes first.
Yeah. And when you say follow, tell us what you mean by follow up. Do you mean texting them, emailing them, calling them?
Yes.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yes. All of those, via texting. One of the things that people don't use today, and if you find someone who's working at a place of business and they have a fax available, send them a fax. You send someone a fax, they're going to read it. They're going to read that faster than they're going to read an email. You know,
that's
do the
a good point.
calls.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. You do your follow-up calls and do them. You don't want to bother people, but at the same time, you want to do it when people are home. So generally, I do what they call dialing for dollars. Take one night a week, generally a Tuesday or a Thursday, and focus 2 hours from 5 to 7 doing nothing but calling customers. Always remembering you're not ever going to try to sell a home on the phone.
Yes.
The only thing that you're doing, Joanne, is you're selling an appointment to have them come and visit your model home village. You're not a sales center. Your model home village. And
Ken, what about direct mail? I mean, if somebody's as a way to follow up. You know,
absolutely. And you have to mail it the very same day that the prospect's been there.
Okay.
Very same day. And then you do a quarterly mailing, or pardon me, your quarterly email at a minimum, and then twice a year on a mass mail, typically when you're going to be doing your open house events. And I do those, and again, in the springtime. And in the fall, I typically recommend doing what is called a VIP, or very important person event, and having that event geared with something like an A2 envelope, which is a small invitation type envelope, the type that you would get if you're invited to a wedding or a party. You get that type of an envelope in the mail, you're going to open it. So that would be for your VIPs.
Okay.
And your other would be your open house.
And Ken, how can people learn more about these ideas? I mean, this is very, these are excellent ideas. Are these in your books and
they're all those ideas and more are in the new audiobook. It's Selling the American Dream of Home Ownership.
Okay.
And it's on my website. It's Call Ken Corbin, Corbin, callkencorbin.com. And of course, Joanne, if any of the listeners would just like to talk to me, throw a couple ideas around that they might have give me a call toll free, 888-823-4945, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of their questions.
Well, that and you also we're getting towards the end of the call, so I want to make sure I get in the the pertinent things. What is your Mastermind and Best Practices group?
Well, that goes back to Napoleon Hill, the Think and Grow Rich gentleman. Mastermind groups are groups that are in your local area. You take the best people in your area that are in business, gather them together, maybe have a meeting once every month or every other month, just talking about business in your local area. You'll get a much better feel on what's going on with the economy and a sharing of ideas, which is tremendous. Of course, best practices is where communities come together that are non-competing, and they gather together typically once every 3 months, and they gather at competitors, not a competitors, but one of the members' communities, and you go through it, and you're as honest as you can be, telling them the little things that you can see that can be improved, and then a sharing of ideas, because everyone in this industry does something incredibly good. At the same time, we all do something that needs considerable improvement. So, but getting together with best practice groups, I'm with 2 of them now. They are absolutely the most valuable source that I can recommend to any of your listeners
that really want to excel at selling homes. Is that the purpose of the group?
Not just selling homes. Overall, running their communities, their operations, people, taxes, rent increases, a service, maintenance. It's just a total sharing of ideas. And it's remarkable what everyone will gather and learn from each other.
Well, Ken, this has been a phenomenal session, and we just have a couple of minutes left, but I want to thank you for these great ideas. And he's in this call, Ken has helped us to break down who are 2 substantial markets for us and for the future, and that's the basic home buyer who's buying the low cost price of the home, but that they need to be wowed also, and then the older baby boomers that are downsizing and could very well be a market for our homes and our communities. And then going forward, also the older millennials will make up a huge part of the housing market. So I want to thank Ken Corbin for sharing these ideas about everything from targeting our market and segmenting it, marketing ideas such as YouTube, Trilio, Zillow, and also his great ideas on staging, lighting, and landscaping in showing the homes, and of course the follow-up, which I think that's probably something most community owners could first of all learn what it is, and then learn how to set it up. So again, if you're interested in Ken's books or his Mastermind group, go to callkencorbin.com. Thank you, Ken, very much.
Joanne, it's been a pleasure, and I always enjoy seeing you at all the meetings across the nation.
It is fun to get together, and I'll probably see you in Las Vegas, if not before that.
Yes, ma'am.
So thanks, everybody. This call will be posted on YouTube by tomorrow, and then our next call will be the first Thursday in January, and I will be capitalization rates and how it relates to the value of your community. Thanks, everybody.